You and your sibling grew up in the same house, same parents, same walls, same dinner table. So why does it feel like you're describing completely different childhoods? They say mum and dad were strict, but they did their best. You remember walking on eggshells. You remember being blamed for things you didn't cause. You remember lying awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if you were actually losing your mind. They remember family holidays. You remember who got screamed at in the car on the way there. You remember who sat in silence, trying not to breathe too loudly because any sound might set someone off. You start telling your story, and your sibling looks at you like you're rewriting history. You catch yourself thinking, if it was really that bad, surely they would remember it too. And just like that, you're back to second guessing your own memory. You didn't imagine it. You lived in the same house, but you weren't standing in the same place inside that family. That gap between your reality and theirs is what we're going to unpack. Why your memories clash, what the golden child and scapegoat roles actually are, how those roles still show up between you now, and what you can do with all of that when your sibling keeps defending the people who hurt you. Let's pull this apart. Most of us are taught to think about families as a bunch of separate relationships. My relationship with mum, my relationship with dad, my relationship with my brother or sister. That's part of it, but it's not the whole picture. In families like this, you're not just dealing with mum and dad as two separate individuals. It's like the whole setup bends itself around keeping them comfortable and keeping the family story about them clean. There's a shared family story. We did our best. We sacrificed everything for you. We were strict because we cared. That story has to stay intact. Anything that fits that story gets rewarded. Anything that threatens it gets shut down or punished. Inside that, kids don't just grow up and see what happens. They get given jobs in the family. One child is chosen as proof that the parents are good, the golden child. Their job is to prove the family is fine. They're the walking advertisement. Look at our impressive, loyal kid. We must be great parents. Another child gets picked as the explanation for why there is always drama, the scapegoat. Their job is to carry what the parents and the wider family don't want to admit to. The anger, the stress, the hypocrisy. They're the walking excuse. If there is a problem, it's this one. You weren't born the good one or the problem. You were pushed into a role that suited the family story and then rewarded or punished for how well you played it. If you grew up as the scapegoat, your body already knows this. You were the one who reacted when something was off. You were the one who said that's not fair, and suddenly you were the issue. You were the one whose sadness, anger, or shutdown got treated as the real problem. No one stopped and thought, hang on, what is this reaction pointing at? Instead, it was, there they go again. This is why our family is so stressed. Your reactions were signs that something was wrong. The family decided your reactions were what was wrong. You became the problem everyone could point at, so no one had to look at dad's drinking or mum's moods or the double standards that ran the whole house. Now the golden child. The golden child is the one who fits the family story and image best. They might be the eldest. They might be the easy one. They might be the child who looks or behaves in a way that lines up with what the parents want to show the world. They get idealised, praised, shown off. Their achievements and traits get used as proof the family is healthy. If one child turned out like that, we can't have been that bad. It's easy to paint golden children as villains and just stop there. A lot of us do that at first because it feels simpler than looking at the whole pattern. Then you watch what happens when they fall out of line, and it gets a lot harder to pretend they were ever truly safe either. On the surface, it looks like they won the lottery. Underneath, they're caught in a different kind of trap. We'll come back to that. First, you need to see how these roles showed up in the small, everyday stuff that built your childhood. Imagine a normal weekday. Your sibling forgets to take out the bin. Your dad sighs, your mum rolls her eyes, someone mutters kids, and that's it. You forget the bin? Now it turns into a full character review. You never help. You only think about yourself. You make my life so much more difficult. Same action, very different meaning glued to it. School is another one. When the golden child brings home a good mark, everybody knows. There's group messages. You should see how well they are doing. They have always been so driven. Their success becomes part of the family story about what a great family you are. You bring home a good mark, you might get a quick, well done. Then it's back to whatever your parents are wrapped up in. Bring home a bad mark, and suddenly it proves something. This is exactly what we mean. You never apply yourself. You don't care about anything. Your mask is not just a mark. It becomes a verdict on who you are. Now look at your emotional reactions. Your sibling snaps once at a parent. They're tired, they're stressed. It's not like them. You snap once? It's not a bad moment, it's your personality. You're unhinged. You've always been like this. You're the reason there's so much tension in this house. Your sibling's pain gets explained and soothed. Your pain gets turned into a diagnosis. Stack that up over years and you're not living in the same climate anymore. Your sibling can look back and think it was strict, but it was pretty normal. You look back and think, I was constantly bracing for impact. You're both telling the truth from where you were standing. You just weren't standing in the same spot. There's another layer under that. You weren't being raised under the same rules. In healthy families, there's one basic rule book. Each kid has their own quirks, but the basic rules and consequences are the same. Your family didn't run like that. There was one rule book for the golden child and one for you. The golden child's rule book sounded something like this. Make us proud, don't embarrass us. Stay close, stay loyal. If they stayed inside those lines, they were safe. When they stepped out of line, the punishment was usually about disappointment and image. We expected better from you. You know this is not like you. There might be coldness. There might be a bit of distance. But the core message was still, you're a good kid, fix this and get back to that version of you. Your rule book as the scapegoat was something else entirely. Don't make us look bad. Don't talk about what happens at home. Don't react in ways that make us uncomfortable. Those were the rules, even if no one said them out loud. When you broke them, the response was heavier and more personal. Yelling, name-calling, being mocked in front of others, being told you were mental, unstable, dramatic. Sometimes there was physical aggression. Sometimes there was total silence and being frozen out like you didn't exist. The message was, you're the problem and we're the ones putting up with you. Living under the golden child rulebook feels like pressure and fear of messing up. Living under the scapegoat rulebook feels like being on trial full-time with no chance to appeal. So when your sibling looks back and shrugs, strict but not abusive, you're not crazy for thinking, were we even raised by the same people? You've been comparing two completely different versions of events. And then you hit the next layer of pain. What happens when you try to talk about it? If you're the scapegoat, you're usually the one who starts Googling. You sit up late searching things like family scapegoat, narcissistic parents. Why does my family always blame me? You start reading and thinking, hang on, this is my childhood. Pieces click that your body has been screaming about for years. You finally get the guts to say to your sibling, it wasn't just strict, it was abuse. They look at you like you'd lost the plot. They weren't that bad. You always blow things out of proportion. Why can't you just let it go? You leave that conversation thinking, maybe I did make it bigger than it was. Maybe it was normal and I'm just weak. Here's what's actually going on under their reaction. Think about what the golden child's identity is built on. I was the good kid. My parents were strict, but they raised me well. I turned out fine. That's not just a memory. That's their whole family story about who they are and where they came from. If your version of childhood is true, that story isn't just missing a few details. It doesn't make sense. For your sibling to fully accept your reality, they'd have to face two things. Our parents hurt you, and they used me to hide it and protect their image. If those two sentences really land, a lot of their favourite stories start to look a lot different. All the times they were held up as the example, the extra help they got, the late night chats where a parent vented about how difficult you had always been. Those moments stop feeling like pure love and start looking like they were being pulled into a job in the family. That's a lot to admit if you've built your whole sense of self on being the good one in a basically decent family. So when your sibling defends your parents, they're not just protecting mum and dad. They're protecting their own version of events. If your reality stands, their reality cracks. That doesn't make it okay when they gaslight you. It doesn't mean you have to keep standing there while they twist what you say. It does mean their denial is not proof you're exaggerating. It's proof of how much truth they can handle. And often, they're not just in denial. They're still doing the job they were trained to do. When a golden child grows up and never questions that role, they often become the new enforcer for the family story and the family image. Your parents don't always have to scapegoat you to your face anymore. Your sibling does it for them. If that's your life now, some of this is going to feel uncomfortably familiar. You get a text before Christmas lunch. Can you please not start anything? Mum can't handle stress. You weren't planning to start anything. You were planning to turn up, be polite, and get through dessert without shaking. They bring it up anyway, as if you simply being there is a risk that has to be managed. In the family group chat, you're always the one being told to be reasonable. Let's all just be civil, don't drag up old stuff. Meanwhile, any comment you make that is even slightly honest gets screenshotted to mum. When you try to talk about something specific, they zoom out and make it about your tone. You always twist things. You're so negative. You're obsessed with the past. None of that is random. They're still doing what kept them safe as kids, managing the family image, pushing blame back onto you, making sure the parents don't have to look at their own behaviour. They also learn to use healing language as a weapon. You need to let it go. You're stuck in victim mode. Therapy is making you worse. On the surface, it sounds caring. Underneath, it's just another way of saying, stop making us uncomfortable. Stop messing with the family story. You pull back to protect your sanity, and suddenly you're selfish. After everything they did for you, you owe them. You're breaking this family. You're making mum sick with worry. Translated, it means get back in your role. Stop telling the truth. Carry the cost so the rest of us don't have to. You're not dealing with a neutral adult who just sees things differently. You're dealing with someone who is still committed to the job they were given in that family pattern. That doesn't mean you have to keep doing yours. And just to make it more confusing, these roles don't always stay fixed forever. Online, golden children and scapegoat get treated like personality types. Once labelled, always labelled. Real families move people around. Sometimes the golden child falls off the pedestal. They pick a partner the parents don't approve of. They move away. They set a boundary. They quietly say, actually, I think they did treat you badly. Watch how fast the vibe shifts. The warmth they were used to goes cold. They get the silent treatment. They start hearing the lines you grew up with. You're ungrateful. You've turned against your own family. They get their first proper taste of scapegoat season. Sometimes you, the scapegoat, become useful again for a while. A parent gets sick, there's a crisis. Suddenly, you're back in the group texts. You get messages about wiping the slate clean. Life's too short. Let's forget the past and move on. The conditions are always the same. You can come back in as long as you don't name anything real, no actual accountability, no specific acknowledgement of what they did. The second you bring any of that up, you're back to being the problem in the family story. The point isn't that you should hang around waiting for a promotion to golden child. There's no safe spot in a family that runs on this pattern of denial and scapegoating. The point is that these roles aren't some deep truth of who you are. They're jobs the family hands out and swaps around depending on who they need to blame or show off that day. Seeing that clearly is part of stepping out of the game. Now we need to talk about the cost. To you, to them, and what you do next. This isn't a pain competition. There's no prize for proving who was more damaged. The real question is, what did this role do to me, and what am I going to do with that now? If you were the scapegoat, your wounds are usually loud. You might be living with complex trauma, anxiety that really never switches off, a nervous system that reacts to raised voices and group chats like you're still in that house. You over-explain everything. You apologise for existing. You assume that if something goes wrong, it's probably your fault. You were punished for reacting like a human being in a family that needed you quiet to protect its image. Your anger made sense. Your shutdown made sense. Your symptoms made sense. They were normal responses to an environment that refused to own its behaviour. If your sibling was the golden child, their wounds looked different. They were praised and put on a pedestal, but they weren't allowed to be fully human either. They learned that their value lives in what they do, how impressive they are, how loyal they are to the family story. Being criticised feels like their whole self is collapsing. They might bounce between trying to be perfect and avoiding anything that could expose them. If they ever let themselves really take in what happened to you, they often hit a late wave of guilt and grief. Plenty of them will do almost anything to avoid that feeling. None of this excuses how they treat you. It explains why they cling so hard to the version of events where your pain is the problem. One of you was punished for seeing reality. One of you was rewarded for helping hide it. Both of you were shaped by the same family pattern. You can't change what that pattern did to you. You can decide how much more of your life it gets to run. Here's what you actually have control over. You can stop arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. If every attempt to talk about the past ends with your sibling defending your parents and attacking your memory, that's not a real conversation. That's them doing their old job. You don't have to keep standing there auditioning for the role of believable witness to your own life. You can choose to treat your own nervous system as a valid source of information. You were there, your body remembers. You can update the story from "I was the problem" to "I was where the family stored the truth they didn't want to see." You can stop asking, "How do I explain this?" so they finally get it, and start asking, "What level of contact can I live with without selling myself out?" That might mean going low contact. It might mean going no contact. It might mean keeping things very surface level and not giving them anything personal to use. There's no one boundary shape that makes you a good person. There's only what is honest and sustainable for you. You're not responsible for keeping the family's image and story alive, but you are responsible for not sacrificing your own sanity to keep everyone else comfortable. Some people will call you cruel, ungrateful, brainwashed, disloyal. That's the price of no longer playing the role they wrote for you. If you recognise yourself in what I've described, and you want language for the exact rules your family ran on, I've put together a guide called the 10 Scapegoat Rules that prove you are never the problem. It breaks down the unwritten rules that trained you to doubt yourself and shows you how they still show up in your relationships and decisions now. The link's in the description box below. If you want to go deeper into how the scapegoat role was created in the first place, I've done a separate breakdown on why your family needed a scapegoat, how they chose you, and what actually changes when you stop carrying it for them. That's the one I'd watch next.